When I became president of the Alumni Association, I think I was elected in 1990, and the bylaws call for a one-year term. And during my presidency, it was clear that a lot of opportunity for change was occurring. And the board recommended that we extend those offices to a two-year term. But being a person who knows a lot about parliamentary procedure, it was inappropriate for me to have a two-year term. Though the way the bylaws would have read, I could have had a two-year term. No way. I said one-year term was what I bought, and that's what I should have. So we were really advancing on a lot of changes. I was very lucky that Lee Pattier was selected to come on board. And the only reason why I think it was possible to have a Lee Pattier was because we were forcing the issue about budget for the Alumni Association. We had support in place, but we didn't have an executive in place. And with an executive, it meant that we could even move from the Cathedral of Learning in small offices to the building on Craig Street, where we had meeting rooms and we really could organize a substantive alumni organization. I was very pleased with that. Not really. I did interview a number of the candidates. My predecessor, Woody Turner, was really the chair of the search. And I met a number of the candidates, but Lee was clearly the right choice. He had been at a university in Florida, had been in a similar position. I think we were larger as an organization, the University of Pittsburgh, so it would be an opportunity for him. When I came on board, I was surprised to find that the alumni organization was essentially a regional organization. We had a lot of alumni around here, around the University of Pittsburgh, in Western Pennsylvania. We had a chapter of alumni in New York, Washington, I think Miami, and even maybe one in California. But we were not national. At that moment, when I became president, I was also a trustee at Penn State. And Penn State had had a longer serving alumni presence. And they were touting membership of over 300,000. And I could hardly count the numbers that we had. We were clearly over 100,000. We might have been even closer to 170,000. But we weren't a body that you could talk to and see change. So immediately, right away, we sat down and took a look at the United States, took a look at the distribution of alumni in the United States, and elected and decided and could craft interest groups all over the United States so that by the time 2 or 3 months were passed, we had contacted a number of alumni who were extraordinarily excited about being called upon to see if they could form an interest group that would become a club. So that was 3 months. By 6 months, it meant that we could talk to a lot of folk. They wanted to come to Pittsburgh to attend meetings, but I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't satisfied because I was working for Westinghouse, and in my position, I had a clear view of the world, the developed world, places where we had locations where we either did business or we were manufacturing. So I didn't understand why Pitt couldn't be the same person, the person that has an international view. And I also knew that we had clumps of alumni in different countries. Indonesia, I was delighted when I heard this one. Indonesia's cabinet, I think, had something like 15 people, 11 of whom were Pitt graduates, had come to Pitt for a graduate program, and I think they were mostly in GISPIA, Graduate School of Public and International Affairs, because that's where I got my degree. And the reason why they were there is because the State Department had a program for burgeoning countries to learn how to run their countries, and they were paying them to come to Pitt to learn how. So here we had a great number of Pitt graduates in Indonesia. I almost wanted to go there. We also had graduates in Korea, because that's business for the companies in Pittsburgh. And so a number of Koreans would come to Pitt for degrees. Japan, China, but Europe, the great number of people had degrees in Poland, some in Spain, France, and the British Isles. So we were all over the world. And there was no reason, I felt, that we couldn't have chapters or interest groups all over the world. And one wonderful way that we were able to make contact was through the deans. The deans knew who their alumni were. And when they were traveling the world, they would get in touch with their own alumni. And so we met with the Dean Council to test whether or not they felt we could form a partnership with the deans to contact their alumni worldwide to fashion interest groups and eventually chapters. We were establishing interest groups first. It's a long process to get a chapter. And we were going through the departments that had contact with their alumni. We did not want to travel because we did not have anything like a budget that we could travel. But there were international departments within the university, and those departments were making contacts with their alum or even with governments all over, because we were establishing satellite educational centers throughout the world. So we established a relationship with these departments, and I would say, I don't expect anybody to leave the United States without a hail to Pitt. We want you to be an active alumni and let us know your address because we're going to call you. So essentially, the departments were our partners to make sure that the alums understood that we wanted them to gather together, form interest groups, and we would support them. We've always had a good relationship with the university, but it was not of the quality that I wanted. For example, the university was going through its own stages of development, or how they were developing support for the university. And they were increasing the quality and quantity of people in the development office. Well, who raises money for Pitt? They had a responsibility to make sure that corporate and large foundations, etc., were going to be funding Pitt. But we wanted the alum to feel so engaged that they would then be really the first order of business to support the university. We were not telling them that we wanted to be funded by them. We were telling them to fund the university because we had lots of issues that we wanted to address. For example, we wanted more visibility for the Alumni Association, so if they buy into it, they are part of the visibility. We wanted to have much more impact than we had at that time. We were looking for scholarship money. Our clubs would fund incoming freshmen, low level. If they could raise $1,000 to give to an aspiring Pitt student, that's about all they could do. Well, we thought it was important to have more than that. So we wanted to be more visible, we wanted to have more impact, and we wanted to assist the university in development. We had other goals. Of course, we wanted to grow. We wanted to make sure that we could raise money on our own to expand the scope of what we were doing. The university, I thought, was in the right position by saying, if you want to grow, you better find your own money. And that's when we brought in the credit card program, for example, and therefore we could independently raise some money. But at the same time, because we were demonstrating that we were strategic, we were serious, and we wanted to embrace the entire university, we went to the then new president of the university. He was called the president, who was Dennis O'Connor. And were able to demonstrate that we were working very closely with the administration, with the admissions, and with programs that were designed to retain students, and were encouraging our own alumni to be mentors to graduating students. So they were interested in staying in Pittsburgh or in any area where they were alum, they could contact the alum, and the alum should understand how their very presence would be enabling the student to get a job. So we felt that we were part of the whole scope of the educational services of the university. Well, if we go to the president and tell him that we are now looking to encourage the best and the brightest to come, so we're going to increase our scholarship base so that we have enough money to give students, but we also had a need to make the whole issue about diversity a much more embracing concept. So we were able to sell the notion to Dr. O'Connor that we would like to have 3 named scholarships that we could award to the best and brightest diverse students coming to Pitt every year. And they were named after Robert Lavelle, the real estate leader here, Leroy Irvis, who was in the Commonwealth's legislative body, and Helen Faison, who was a noted educator here. So we had 3 named scholarships. It's amazing how that ripples through the educational community and to students who are coming to Pitt. Because as we were able to identify the students who had these named scholarships, they were then looked at as bright lights on the campus. And it gave us another opportunity to demonstrate that we were interested in raising scholarship money, not only for students that were coming here, but even for graduate students. So I think we were beginning to demonstrate that we had a very large wish list, we had a burgeoning strategic plan, and we were implementing it step by step. I don't take obstacles easily. And my job at the time was, I had just left Westinghouse as president of the Westinghouse Foundation, which is a very challenging position. I take no prisoners. And I felt that if we had a strategic plan that had been adopted by the board of the Alumni Association, and we had communicated it not only to the deans, but to all the people on the council, which is 140 of us. We're a big organization because we want to be representative. Then it was important not to worry about obstacles, but to articulate extremely well what our mission was, what our goals were, and how we hope to achieve them. For example, I'm not a speaker, and I really don't like to talk to crowds, but the opportunity to talk to the graduates that year came about by my saying we want to have lots of presence everywhere. So I was asked to come to graduation and, in my role as president of the Alumni Association, induct the complete graduating class into the Alumni Association. We'd never done that before. Before, we would send them a letter when they graduated and say, come join us. I was able to induct them all, very officially, and tell them they're in free for the first year. It was quite a stunner. And it meant that we now had a body that we could add to the numbers. And we've been doing that ever since, as I understand it. But I thought it was very important to let them know that that total class was an alumni class, and that they were part of the body, and we're all going to work on all the issues that we needed to work on together. Well, let me just start with the staff. Lee came on board, and Beth Johnson, who used to work at Westinghouse, and I knew her from Westinghouse, took on the alumni program development side. And Lovett's wife came on board just when we were articulating a need for making the alumni effort more youthful. And that's when we came up with the Blue and Gold Society, because it was a similar organization at Penn State. And it was one way that we could own students who were active, doing well at school, and leaders, and they could be a body to be very visible throughout the university. So the Blue and Gold was outstanding, and that was during I'm pretty sure that was inaugurated during my administration. And just the fact that they would come around in blue and gold, wearing blue and gold, and pumping up excitement and going to the games, they were wonderful. And they'd come to all of our meetings, all of our board meetings. We were stimulating them, and they were stimulating us. So those were the key staff at the time. I called upon Roger Glunt a lot, because Roger exhibited such a love for the university that when I needed really a good look at the strategic plan, he was the chair. I called on the former president of the Alumni Association, Woody Turner, to take a look at the bylaws, because he had had the experience of being president and he knew what the shortcomings were and what the needs were. We're an old organization. As I remember, I think we were established in 1866, and we did not become the University of Pittsburgh Alumni Association by nomenclature till about 100 years later. And one little unknown fact that I uncovered recently was the fact that it was the Alumni Association that built the stadium, the football stadium, in about 1922. And they raised the money. I think a lot of it was private money, because the people who were on the board were leaders of the community. They were manufacturers and bankers. So they had some opportunity to raise the money for the stadium. I think the numbers were something like $1.5 million was the original forecast for the building. And then, of course, during the building itself, it rose to $2 million. That was a lot of money then. And by the time it was finished, it was $2,146,000, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a wonderful story to know that the alumni had made that investment. I was just sorry that it was only recently that I knew that. Had I known it when I was president, I would have told everybody, because it was an investment in the institution at a time when they needed an iconic place that even held some of the Steeler games for a while. What we found was that they had not been tapped, and they were waiting for somebody to say hello. So wherever we went, without exception, they said, what do you want us to do? How much is it going to cost? And when can we really feel that we're part of the organization? It was outstanding. I think there's sometimes, there's a void in communications, and I wanted to fill the void, and anybody could call me anytime for any reason, but they were willing to not only collaborate, invest, take their time, and they wanted to come back here. So when we would have the all-club meeting, everybody would come, all dressed in blue and gold. And we would try to make it a time when a game would be played. And it was serious business, because everybody had ideas how we were going to grow faster, do more. But it was also a need for us to just enjoy each other. And I think that was a good start, because the sense that I've had is that we're extraordinarily positive. We have really articulated our goals and missions extremely well. I thought Lee did an excellent job supporting the board over the time that after I left, because I could see on a regular basis review of the strategic plan and the development of a new 5-year plan. And oftentimes I had been called to participate in that. Oh, we packed a lot. In fact, when Bob Lovett came on, Lee, quote unquote, said, I think I need a week to recover from Cecile Springer's presidency. And he was absolutely correct, because my expectations were extraordinarily high. Some of the things that I think we did was really to have a presence, a larger presence, even where we had established clubs. I went to New York for a meeting at a time when some members of the Board of Trustees were going to be in New York, so that I could amplify the alumni role. And shortly thereafter, the New York chapter just became far more invested in what we were doing. They grew, they increased their scholarship support, and they became more active with the overall alumni organization. I felt that that was the same for all of the groups. Washington wanted to see us more often. Philadelphia, couldn't get over Philadelphia. Philadelphia wanted to do a recruitment. They were going to recruit all of Philadelphia to come to Pitt. So I think that what we did was change the level of interest so that it was higher. Everybody wanted to jump on board, and we provided visibility. If you got here, you were going to be seen, and you're going to see what was going on. So I think that was one great part. I thought the whole diversity issue took on a very positive light, because there were a group of alumni here who wanted to form a council. They knew their name. They wanted to be the African American Alumni Council, AAAC. They wrote their own mission bylaws as a subset of who we were. They recommended some leaders in the community to be the officers of the council. And I can't tell you how solidly they were organized, because today I think the African American Alumni Council is an extraordinarily strong arm of the Alumni Council. They have done remarkable things in recruiting, scholarship assistance, and retention of students, and they communicate well with faculty. So I think there were elements of what we started that have maintained a growth view and have become more important as far as impact is concerned. And certainly the Blue and Gold Society. I can't get over how gorgeous they are. Well, remember now, I think this building is an outgrowth of the fact that we were growing, and we knew that we needed to be more integrally connected with what was going on, and an asset base. So we've always worked with the development activity. Can you imagine a $2 billion campaign? Of course we're part of that. Yeah. But at the same time, you have to, I feel that Pitt has just grown enormously. The buildings, their perspective, their relationships. I can't get over how close we are with CMU. And there's no reason why those collaborative opportunities aren't there. There are even some buildings that are co-used between CMU and Pitt. Google came to town because of CMU. Google clearly has opportunity for Pitt. So, and, not so much so, but and, that whole UPMC, the whole medical community that we have that's attached to the university, is something that CMU looks forward to working with because of robotics, because of the kind of research that goes on at Pitt and the kind of research that goes on at CMU. So I see enormous growth in understanding of what the role of the university is, how it impacts research, and how it is a source of jobs. I think that whole technical corridor that we have along the river where steel used to be made is an enlightened area, and it is co-occupied by Pitt in some buildings and CMU in the other. So we are just at a different level. We are a multi-billion-dollar operation. We raise billions, and we invest billions in what we're doing. 20 years from now, I still see the innovation that we create as a job stimulus for this community. I've seen it go from blue collar to white collar. I've seen it go from white collar business to white collar research and scientific improvement. And I see students who are vibrating with intelligence, willingness to help each other, willingness to stay in Pittsburgh. I can't get over the number of students who get their PhDs who are staying here. So we're turning out to be a very different community in Western Pennsylvania because of the investments that we've made into technology, into innovation development, and in using it to re-amplify the capability of the institutions. Both Pitt I think has just been a wonderful state-related opportunity for everybody. CMU is private, but can you imagine the relationship that we've had and what those opportunities are? Well, I always believe that there's a lot more in the future, and I think that we're equipped to challenge the future, to shape it, to invest in it, and to make all the kids, my grandkids, really part of the future so that they can be educated, own their education, and invest in themselves and the community. I'm very happy about that. Well, I still think that we have all sorts of opportunities for the future. And the University of Pittsburgh provides that because of the educational environment that they have, because of the investments that they make. with the research and technology development that's going on here, innovation is going to stream out of here. And from what I can see, innovation is considered to be the job stimulator for the future. If we're producing undergraduates who are smart, and we're producing PhDs who are even smarter, we want to keep them here. But we have to have jobs to do that. So I see where the university has a role in being creative, investing in this community, and seeing to it that jobs are the result of the innovation that they're researching.